You're listening to Never Off Duty. All right, today we have got a special treat for you because we have the deputy, Andrew Ford, back, who has not been here since the Jaguars game.
Yes.
And we have a Philly game coming up, and we've got another Philly person. I'll introduce him in just 1 second here. So I'm surrounded by Philly fans, who I'm going to root for this weekend, by the way. But we have not talked since that game. You will listen to this after the Super Bowl.
The Eagles win.
That's right. And we'll go into that. But I saw an AI has predicted that they'll win, and they're never wrong. So it'll be a fun conversation. We'll do that the second half, but we'll talk more detectiving and policing. Oh, I just gave it away. So we also have Detective Bobby Bassler.
Yes.
I did it. I've been practicing the name off mic, and I messed it up. You are a detective.
Yes.
How long are you with the force?
5 years.
Is it force? Do you say force for everything? Or?
Force, agency, department.
Agency, that's right. I always mess that up. 5 years?
5 years.
And how long have you been a detective for?
2 years.
Oh, wow. That seems pretty fast. So we'll go into that because I have tons of questions. I'm fascinated, and I'm sure people in the agency are used to this, so you don't think of these things. But outsiders are always like, oh, I wonder how you do this. How do you get in the timelines? And we've talked about recruiting before.
Yes.
Because, again, that's fascinating to other people. So we'll talk with him first. We'll go in depth. Let's take a 2-second break and be right back. Okay, we're back. All right. So first thing first, because I think this will segue well. Y'all just had your Deputy of the Year?
Deputy of the Year, our award ceremony.
And what is the Deputy of the Year? What's the criteria for it? And
it actually goes through a vetting process through members on the committee, command staff members on the committee. They thoroughly go through the incident that occurred, or an incident that may have occurred that person had been involved with, and they make sure that, hey, is this something that's worthy of Deputy of the Year? Or if you're getting accommodation, making sure that all the steps that were taken, whether it's a life-saving award or accommodation for a job well done, they really go through a process of vetting and making sure that, is this person truly worthy? And then once they finish that review, then they come out with and say, hey, you know what? These folks are worthy of that accommodation. This person is worthy of Deputy of the Year. This person is worthy, whether it's public safety, telecommunications of the year, just by the outstanding work that they have performed during the course of the year.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it's not like McDonald's does it, where the manager just goes, "I like this person, you're employee of the month."
It's not that easy in law enforcement. I can tell you that.
I take that back. I don't know if McDonald's does that. They probably have a rigorous, but there are places that I do know that probably aren't name brand. That's usually the owner's like, just pull them out of a hat. I used to work for an automobile, and that's what they did. Every month it was everybody's names in there. You pull out a name, and that's who's employee of the month.
Shake up the basket.
Shake it up, and if it's the same name as the previous month, they toss it, because you got a coveted spot, parking spot. That was very important.
Listen, getting that coveted parking spot closer to the building, that's a good thing. So I can see why.
So we have the winner of this year's award.
Yes,
and that is Detective Bobby B. So Bobby B. And I'm going to let you, because I was like, that name sounds familiar, but that's Deputy Ford's name for the detective.
Yes, that is my name. I call him Bobby B just to make it short. Plus, I think it's a cool.
It's actually pretty cool.
At least it's a cool nickname that I give him.
As a Transformers fan, growing up.
Right.
Yes, we talked about
Uncle
this.
Bobby B, baby, Uncle Bobby B. Rest in peace, Bernie Mac.
Yep. So what was the what happened? The incident to get this award?
Well, let me go ahead and tell you. So, and you made a great, or should I say, you said this year. So actually, the detective or deputy of the year was for 2022. We were just able to go ahead and hold the ceremony this year, and for Bobby B, Detective Bassler. When you hear the story, you'll say yes, and I think our community would say he absolutely deserves it, because it's something that he did that was truly heroic, that earned him to be deputy or detective of the year.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell us about it.
It was It was Labor Day weekend last year. My parents have a beach condo down by the Matanzas Inlet. So we went out there for the weekend, just hang out with family and stuff. So we went down to the beach, walked down there, just got set up, sitting in my chair, and I hear a bunch of screaming down by the shore. So I, of course, I run over to see what was going on. There was a kid that swam out too far and got caught up in a current. So I swam out there, and he was caught in a rip current. So I just joined in on the rip current with him, and we kind of just swam parallel to the shore to get out of it because he was in shock by the time I got into him. So every time I touched him, he tried to fight me off. Mm-hmm. So we rode out the current for about 5 minutes, and then thankfully another man who was also in pretty good shape. He was in the military. He was a Marine on leave. He joined in, and we were able to ride out the current for a couple more minutes, and we both got him to shore. Once I hit shore, I fell out. So I made sure the kid got his medical assistance, and they checked me out a little bit. I just needed a couple minutes, and then I was good to go. But yeah, and then me and the other guy that helped out, his name was Mike. We talked for about 10 minutes, and he was like I said, he was in the military. He's on leave for 2 weeks. Just came back and shook hands, and shook hands with him, and that was the end of it.
That's pretty awesome. That is actually really awesome. And if I remember correctly, so this is from my Eagle Scout days, being a Boy Scout.
Right.
Rip current, let it take you out, go perpendicular to the shore till you're out of the current, and then swim back in. But the hard thing is, like you said, in one age, but two, anyone, you panic. And that's and that usually takes somebody calmer on shore who could think about what's going on. Because you don't know. I mean, I imagine that would be very frightening to suddenly be pulled out. Like you're probably in your mind going, did a shark just grab? Like what's going through your mind of what happened? So that's awesome that thank goodness somebody was there, because that's what gets you. And
I think put it in perspective. If unless I misquote or I'm wrong, but I think kid was 100 yards out. So we're talking about swimming 100 yards out.
Yeah, that's not easy.
And then coming 100 yards back. And
you're paddling for a while to just stay with it, so that you don't drown while you're waiting out.
The way the water was that day was you go out, gets a little bit 5-6 feet deep, and then you hit a sandbar, mm-hmm. and then past that sandbar is where about 30-40 yards past that sandbar is where
I know that area very well. My grandmother had a beach condo out there, so we spent summers growing up out there, and it's the same thing. It can happen anyway. It happens all the time, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. And you talk about being right place, right time, especially 11-year-old kid sitting out there stuck in a rip current, and not even acting, and because he was down there as a civilian,
right?
Visiting, hanging out with parents' condo, so to still go and risk his life, to save another, and I think that's one of the most important things, not only as a human being and humanity wise, but as a law enforcement officer, we sign up to do this job, and but you never, again, hence the podcast,
the name,
never off duty.
Yep.
Because he went into swift action, to go and save someone's life, and it's a true testament, at least for the Clay County Sheriff's Office, that we have members like him who are actually working for our department, that the media never heard this story. So the only time now that this story is coming out is because we're sitting here on the podcast, but also because we had an award ceremony where, folks who were sitting in the audience were allowed to hear his heroic actions and what he did.
Yeah. No. So thank you. That was awesome. And it is true. Like I think for people who don't have a job like this, where you're on call all the time, and there are people that can somewhat relate, emergency room people and, the firemen and women and a little different though, because sometimes y'all get called in and people shooting at you.
Right.
But if I get called in at 4:00 in the morning, it's because a train fell over and it's already done. So it's easy.
Ohio. Yeah, but that's a whole
I know,
other topic.
Because you know more about trade stuff like that. That's
so, and also let us thank the Marine.
Yes.
You may not know his last name, but Mike, the Marine, who was with, Detective Bassler, Bobby B. Thank you for also swimming out there to help not only that child, but you also helped, one of our guys, I truly believe, come back, safely as well. Because listen, it's a team effort, and listen, he could have pulled Bobby probably could have pulled the kid in by himself, but he still work as a team to accomplish the goal and the mission. Right?
I was starting to struggle.
That's a lot of swimming.
That's a lot of swimming.
Current.
So we're talking about 200 yards all total, right?
And I've heard this from many people. Usually you're fighting with the person you're trying to save because they're panicked, which is not easy. I mean, get into a struggle on the street and you're tired in 3 minutes if it's a real struggle. Imagine trying to swim and basically subdue a person to calm them down so that you can save them. That's a lot of work.
That's a testament. I think
my heart would probably blow out. I mean,
listen, I know mine would have. But that's a testament. And this is a guy who I've seen over the course of us being in the sheriff's office together. You never see him get razzled. You never see him, get flustered or anything when it comes to a crisis situation. It always appears to be calm under pressure, calm under something critical, and that's a true testament, to be able to do what he did. But it focuses or it suggests his characteristics, how he handled himself out there is how he also handles himself here in the sheriff's office.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So you're a detective. Again, I ask questions from the people on the outside because we don't know things. We watch TV and that's how everything is. So are y'all are you homicide? I mean, are there different, are you a detective of everything? Is like every detective work everything? Or is it like, no, you're narcotics. No, you're this.
Yeah, I'm an auto crime detective.
Okay.
So we have auto crime section. We have residential and business burglary section. We have our SVU, the special victims unit, and then our robbery and homicide unit, and then our narcotics unit.
Okay.
So I've been an auto crime detective for 2 years. It's kind of where you start out property crime, and then if you want to move up to SVU, and there's an interview process for every department. So
what's the what's the criteria for moving up to the detective from deputy?
There's a boarding. So if you have to be off probation for a year, I believe.
Off probation is
and he's talking about special. So yes. You have to be at least a deputy,
okay, so
once you get hired in.
Oh, you got in trouble. Wait it out of here.
Right, yeah, no, not that, but more or less off probation.
My correction. So, yeah, you have to be off probation, which is a year after you're done with FTO, which is field training.
Okay.
So a year, you have a year probation period, and then after that 1 year probation, then you can, board for investigations, work secondary employment, which is like working the church or something on Sundays and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And it is a process. When you go and you're boarding for investigations or any other position within the agency, you have to go through that interview process, and they ask you some questions, and they really dive into your work ethic and your work history, characteristics and personality. And, they take all of those things into consideration, and then they come out with a list, who came out number 1 to number 10, if you had that many people, and who's at the top of the list. And generally they go off that list, from number 1 to number 5 or number 6, and in that order of who comes over once they have some open positions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So would this be auto theft, or is it auto accidents, or is it everything?
I deal with stolen vehicles, burglary to vehicles.
Okay.
So whenever somebody breaks into a car, catalytic converter thefts, that's a big thing going on all over the country right now.
Yes.
People going under cars and cutting off catalytic converters, selling them for to the middleman. Middleman will take it to the big man. Big man will...
What is that? So, because I have a theory, and you walk me through this. So, whenever I hear that, because that seems like a lot of work for something that doesn't return that much profit, I'm thinking it must be drug related. Somebody's probably quick sell it to drugs. I mean, how much does that make on the black market, do you think?
There's metal inside these catalytic converters. It's platinum. And
okay, well, there you go.
Precious metals.
So these foot soldiers will go do this stuff for a couple $100, unfortunately, for some drugs. And then this foot soldier will take it to the middleman, who'll take it to the big man. It's nationwide too. It's not just Clay County and Duval. It's nationwide.
How long does it take for somebody to seal it? Like, are you? Wow,
that quick.
So, is this one of those ones where you need to be careful, pay attention in a parking lot during the day at Winn-Dixie, or is it more of a like nighttime? Don't park in a sketchy.
Both.
It can happen anytime.
I've worked cases where they can go up to the Orange Park Mall and hit the parking lot and hit 5-6 cars within 5 minutes.
So what the automobile industry needs to do is start reinforcing that area so you can't get to it.
Yes.
There's processes. Then I believe it's already underway of serializing these converters. Just because of the nationwide pandemic with these things. And once they serialize it, because you're under law, you're supposed to have a license to buy and sell converters. But if they're not serialized,
he missed the air quotes right there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you could. Well, I mean, it's like there's. I'm not going to talk about what it is, but I know from the construction industry, there's stuff that if you went in to buy, you can't buy because it's extremely dangerous. But if you go in to buy it because you're doing a construction project, take a gallon.
Right.
Take I've got a on my. Well, I don't want to say that. I'm going to stop because I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, no. But I mean, it's all we're in construction. What we have is legal, but you don't even need a construction license. You just need to be doing the project.
Doing the project.
It's spooky when stuff.
It is, and listen, and Bobby hit it right. Yeah, those catalytic converters nationwide. My cousin, who's up in Philadelphia, called me 2 weeks ago. And matter of fact, he's down here in Florida today for some law classes. He's a lawyer, but he said, "Hey, man, I went out to my car and I started it up, and it was real loud. He had a Lexus hybrid, and he said, and I cut it off, and I was like, oh, is it a car behind me? A loud muffler." And he said he turned it back on, heard this loud, just real loud. And he said, this is coming from my car. And he looked and noticed that, his catalytic converter was missing. So he said, man, what do I do? And I said, just call Philly police, have them take the report. I said, you'll probably never see it again, but take the report because and I said, listen, it's not just you, it's happening all over the country. So.
Well, and it seems like with automobile things, now we've got lucky. We've had automobiles in our company stolen, but we have GPS trackers.
Right.
So I guess sometimes because they're well hidden, it just takes so long to find them. It's not worth the time. They're going to bolt and go. So we'll find them out we found like a truck in the middle of nowhere and dirt road. But I guess it's weird. Why did they abandon it? Like, I guess they just went for a joyride because they didn't steal anything. They just took off and left it. But, It's frustrating from a civilian standpoint. I've had I had a convertible when I was younger, and they'd slash the top. It almost makes you want oh, by the way, I left the doors unlocked because I didn't want the top slashed. But thank you for not checking the door first. That is the frustrating thing.
Lock it, lose it. Please lock your car vehicles.
No.
I know you
when
did.
You have
right?
a convertible, the most expensive thing is replacing the top.
Right.
I'd much rather you just steal the radio than make me pay for the top. So that was the thing everybody did. You just left your
leave the door unlocked. Yep. Yes, and that makes sense. I get it.
If people lock their doors, I might be out of a job because that's mostly. I mean, you'll be surprised how many people leave their spare key inside their unlocked car, the wife will have the spare key to her husband's truck inside her car. So if she leaves her car unlocked and he even locks his truck or vice versa, then, they'll go through the car, they'll find a key fob and click it. Oh, it's to that truck. Hop in it and they can be in South Carolina in 3 hours.
But it's not just that. Because I always say a locked car can lead to an unlocked car can lead to an unlocked home. Because what's the number one thing?
The garage door opener.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you leave your doors unlocked, you potentially leave your house unlocked to the criminal.
This is like when I was 17, so they didn't have garage. Yeah.
They didn't have,
right. That's highfalutin back then.
Right.
Garage door opener.
If it was the old one, you had to carry you had to hit the button, right?
They don't even think they had an automatic, but I think you had to go over there and
hit the code.
Which nobody locked it because it was too much of a pain.
Matter of fact, I think he had keys. You had to go and unlock it and roll it up. Absolutely.
Yep.
And it's scary. Since I've been an auto crime detective, it's scary to see how many guns are stolen out of unlocked cars.
As a concealed carry person, I always, which you can probably tell from being in my room, these are my retired. No, actually, most of those were. I like you get addicted when you like guns. Is like you're like, well, this is a little bit lighter and more powerful. I'm going to carry this.
It's never retired gun. If it can shoot, it's never retired.
It's never retired. I know people are like, well, why don't you sell it? I'm like, because they're not like you can't get that much money out of it, and it's I don't know. It's got nostalgia,
right? It is. It's a collection.
Yeah. So, but anyway, and these aren't even my good ones. I have other safes in the house for like quick access that I put my ones that I actually want to shoot.
You never know.
Somebody breaks in. I'm in a gated community, and it's like the chances of that happening is very rare. But I'm ready. But anyway, so. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. But as a concealed carry person, that's what I've always thought is, the problem is you go to the post office, you're not allowed concealed carrying inside. So you have to lock it in the car. But I'm always thinking, wow, like if I'm going to break in, I'm going to go to the lock thing and unlock it, which then makes you go, well, maybe I should like hide it versus lock it. Is there any tips you could give people?
Very rarely. I think there was probably 2 cases out of all last year in 2022 where people actually broke windows to get into cars.
Wow. So lock your car.
Lock your car, and there's only been 2 incidences that we've worked all last year in 2022 where it was actually smash and grabs.
Wow. And they probably, on top of locking your car, even though you locked it, the reality is don't leave any valuables in sight.
Right.
Whether it's money, computers, cell phones, or anything, that is catching to a criminal's eye.
What about the wires? Like because that's my thing. I'm always like, well, if you see the iPad, but then again, I think every car has a wire now, so it might maybe lessen it a little bit.
Right. I think you may see the wires, but as long as that item itself isn't visible, just throw it in the trunk or take it in the house. But what they're after is those particular valuables that they know they can get something for. And so if your iPad or money, change,
firearm,
well, don't leave that exposed.
They will definitely.
Right. It's such an easy thing. Like, there's a Glock. I'm gonna break in here and steal that.
TVs, computer monitors, all pocketbooks. All that.
Speaking of pocketbooks, I was looking around because I saw rings. But anyways, my spouse, my wife, I'm always like you can't just like at least like take this rain jacket and cover it up. Like, what are you doing? Well, it's just my backpack. And I'm like, yeah, but there's nothing in it. But they don't know that.
Right. They don't know that. So now you risk, a window being broken because the doors may be locked just to get it for them to get an empty bag. And so, just don't leave anything visible if you can.
Okay. So I just put an order in because Ring is coming out with a new dash cam that also, when you're out of the car, you flip it up and it monitors the inside of your car. Do you think technology like that, is it helping or is it really just they don't care? Because, I feel like you could also just put on a mask and break in and then...
Yeah, like Oakleaf, right now, those new homes in Oakleaf, every other house has a camera and it doesn't stop them.
But I think, but listen, any deterrent or anything that can help maybe give us a tip or a clue, who's doing... that if we don't already have someone in custody. So if Ring or any other companies that are coming out with technology where you can put it in your car and then when you get out, you can flip it up and now it's monitoring the inside of your car. I think any tool of that can help aid law enforcement.
And it alerts you too. So if you see on your phone, why is somebody in my car?
Right. That's a big thing.
I guess they make AirTags now where you can put it on an item or your car and you can track it.
It's funny because Apple tells you not to do that, but it's so we've put them in as a backup to our GPS tracking in our vehicles. Now you're not supposed to do that. Sorry, Apple's probably going to pull us off now for saying that. But the thing is does it alert the driver that's still in your vehicle that if they've got an iPhone, it says, hey, there's an air. But I'm thinking you're probably going to pull over and be like, where's that AirTag? Which causes a delay.
Or dump the car.
Which is
say, hey, let me get out of here real quick.
I always like to play the game like, if I were doing that, what would I do? And I would be like, I'm out.
I don't have time to look. I don't have time to look for something so small.
Yeah.
Throughout a vehicle. So I would dump it. But the hope is no one ever takes it.
Right.
So there's so many companies with, small types of GPS trackings that you can use.
And it seems like most commercial, because of for people listening, so a lot of the GPS tracking for commercial is because of the DOT rules for log booking. It's just easier. You basically, love government mandated that you have to use one of these companies. Otherwise, you get huge. Even if you keep perfect logbooks, they always find something. So if you have the company, pay your $10,000 a year to somebody, just so you don't get a $15,000 fine. And that's because you're not going to get away from the fine. Like it doesn't matter. There will be a loophole that they'll find.
They'll find something.
When they come to do the inspection, they're going to be like, "Why aren't you using the GPS tracking
They will find
from our approved vendor?" Never mind.
So now you got to pay $5,000 more.
Yep. Yeah. So, anyways, but that's why you have them in commercial. But it works. It does. I mean, like I said, we've recovered vehicles because of that, and that's. Nice.
I had a victim who had a GPS in her car and cameras, and her car was stolen. Suspect drove it right to his house, and so I was able to see on camera, and I was able to pull up the address of who lived there. And I looked at the camera, looked at who lived there. I was like, well, that's my suspect, and there's him getting into the car and driving off. So I was able to make an arrest about an hour after I got the case.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's awesome.
In vehicle technology, I think most of your vehicles now today comes with some form of technology, no matter what vehicle it is, because you can have apps.
Yes.
That
my Jeep, which is not, Jeeps aren't that technologically advanced, but it's got an app and it tells me what I need to oil change.
Exactly.
So,
with some of those apps, what's one of the things it tells you? Do you want to track your car or locate your car? So, if your car, happens to go missing, some of these apps are, tied to the vehicles themselves, are very useful in other products like OnStar that are in vehicles or whatever else is out there.
So is it, when you have vehicle theft, again, I'm thinking from where I sit, the more modern the vehicle, the less likely it's going to be stolen because like a Tesla, I would think that'd be a nightmare to steal because of the amount of cameras and constant tracking.
Yeah, I haven't worked a Tesla. A stolen vehicle of a Tesla. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, right.
Now that I think about it, I heard you might appreciate this as a detective and a deputy and y'all's long careers. Somebody once told me I was interviewing a guy who retired from the FBI, and he said I was like, wow, that was really smart what they did. He goes, no, don't you understand? Like if they were smarter, they wouldn't be doing this. Like they could be, they are good. That little thing, but they're not smart. They make tons of mistakes. Yes. And if they were smart, they would have gone, I'm going to take my talents and start a business and do something.
I've been saying that for years in law enforcement. If some of these criminals would apply just some of the I don't want to give them credit for some of them. There are some of them that are very tricky and or savvy. Mm-hmm. And you say to yourself, if you would have took just the effort of what you did here and applied it in a good way, the possibilities probably would be endless, But, I guess it's easier just to go ahead and do this thing rather than...
I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to a psychologist and find out what the psychology is. What's the breaking point? Because they always say, and I say this as a CEO, but I'm not. They always, I was reading that they're like, well, most CEOs have sociopathic tendencies. And I'm like, no, but I mean, I always equate leadership, and which, y'all are in your fields, is you're like a captain of a ship.
Right.
Sometimes you have to make really hard decisions for the good of the ship that might seem really bad to the person that's job it is to run up and down in the sails because suddenly their food ration gets cut. But the idea is you have a responsibility to get the ship back into port safely and save as many lives as possible. That's not always... That's a hard thing. So maybe it does take a little bit of that. Well, if you have to pull the gun and pull the trigger, you just have to go into this is what I have to do mode versus thinking about, you'll think about it later. And there's the difference. You think about your actions later, but when a decision has to be made, you have to be firm, do it, and be okay with it because that's just the reality.
Be decisive, and it's about the overall picture.
Yeah,
and most of it, trying, especially if it's trying to save a life or protecting the life of more people, or whatever business field you're in, the overall arching goal of the company or whatever the case may be. You're doing that for best business practices or best safety practices.
Great. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to ask some more questions because I know people like to know how you did this, what drove you, the whole process. People love that. So we'll ask those questions. We'll take one more break, and then we're going to talk about the Super Bowl because,
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Well, it also,
Birds.
Sheriff Cook's not here. She can't stop us
Right.
talking football for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Actually, she probably would talk with us, so that's a problem. We'd have a 40-minute segment that should have been a 10-minute. So you're listening to Never Off Duty. Before we break, remember to subscribe, rate us really well. If you don't like it, share it with your friends. Tell them how much you hate it, but they should listen to it. And if you have questions, make sure to email
sheriff@claysheriff.com.
Right. Do that. Put podcast in there. We are getting tons of questions. We've been writing them down, and we're going to have a whole episode where we just go through those questions and start. We've already, last episode before this, when you listen to this, will have been the Clay County Fair. We did that because of questions. Right. We had a ton of questions about the Clay County Fair, so we just did a whole episode. So it's very good. So remember, listen, download, like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yes.
You're listening to Never Off Duty. Okay, we are back to Never Off Duty. All right, so detective, we've talked a lot about what's going on in the world of automobile things with theft and all that, and I wanted to talk about your career because people are fascinated. So you were 2 years into the force agency when I'm going to mess it up every time now. When you decided to make the jump, is that how that works?
Yeah, I was spent 2 years in patrol, and then I spent a year on a task force team, and then after about a year on task force is when I boarded for investigations.
Now, what is a task force?
It's just targeting narcotics, high narcotic area, and do a bunch of traffic stops, serve warrants, just kind of a variety of tasks, things throughout the night. Whatever we're assigned, whatever our supervisor tells us to do, that's what we're doing that night. Gotcha. So you take a test, is that correct? Or how does it, what's the process? You decide you want to be a detective, and then what do you do next? They'll put out a memo, anybody who wants to board for investigations, send in your resume, all that stuff. And then the board will be put out the date and time, and then it's just a board of directors, lieutenants, and they'll just ask you questions. What would you do in this kind of situation type questions?
Now, you look young, so I'm going to ask this. I'm 45, and I get people, you look young. I don't know how old you are. Like, none of us, I can never tell ages. The sheriff put me on the spot, by the way, about her age.
Yeah,
I'm
48.
Okay. So, yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, like, you could be 35. Like, I mean, that's the thing. You've got gray in your beard, but I do too.
Right.
So it's like, it's like you can have gray in your beard at 20. So it's
you got that right.
I'm 28, and I still get carded for lottery tickets.
Okay.
So, I mean, I get it all the time. Are you old enough to be a cop? I say, yes, I've been a cop for 5 years.
So was it your first job, or did you do something else first?
No, I graduated college and then went straight in the academy.
Okay. So that's what I asked this because I'm sitting here going, because this is a pet peeve of mine, especially when you're in an organization, you can punt on this. You don't have to say anything. But I mean, it's like, they're always like, we're promoting. Send us your resume. It's like, my resume is here. Like, what do you need? You know everything about me. I've been with you since
I've been right here. Everything on my resume is what you saw me do, right?
Graduated college. A month later, I was in the academy, and that's my resume.
And you have my resume from when I applied to get here. So you kind of got it all. But anyways, that's just... So is there? So you said that I guess y'all kind of keep a running track of like where you rank, or is there like, is that when the ranking starts of who the top?
That's once the process is done. They interviewed all of those who applied, to take the board. And so again, if we just use an even number, so if you have 10 people that said, yes, I want a board for investigations, all 10 of those folks at different times will go in front of that board where they'll be asked those questions, their work, cases they may have worked, how would they have handled cases, and because if I'm right, Bobby, some of the cases talked about are maybe some of the cases you have handled.
Yeah, like they'll ask about cases you worked through and through. And when I was on patrol and even task force, I've worked some cases that I could have transferred but wanted to work anyway. so they'll allow you to do that if you ask.
Oh, that's interesting. So that actually was a question. So that's great. So you see something while you're on patrol, you can say, can I see this through?
Right.
And is that like, does your does your supervisor like yes, no that, or is that a
correct? So I'll be like, hey, I can keep this. I got suspect information. You mind if I keep this? And then 99% of the time they'll be, yeah, go ahead.
It makes sense if you kind of are wrapping it up. Why not let you see, and you get to see it through all the way to the arrest?
Correct.
That's pretty cool.
Unless it's stuff that I need to go to Jacksonville or like St. John's for, then it'll be okay, transfer it. But if the suspect also lives in Clay County and you can go do an interview, or if like a burglary and then the card was used also in Clay County for like a debit card, and go ahead and work it, see if you can get suspect information. And so, most of the time your supervisor will be like, yeah, go ahead. Perfect.
Now this might be too operational. So again, you might not be able to, so before you answer, y'all confer this is okay to talk about. So if you get a case like a burglar, whatever, there's stolen property and you know where they live and you know where they're at there. Is that something where, do you just get a partner and go see if you can like get them out and talk to them and get them arrested? Or is it one of those, like, if okay, we got to go and this could be dangerous. How does that work out?
Yeah, I'm usually every time you go talk to what could be a suspect, always have a partner with you. It's a backup. Never go alone. That's the first thing they'll teach you. And then also if you run a little background before you go talk to him, see if there's any violent tendencies he's got, any prior arrests for battery on Leo. You kind of take all that into factor. And once. There's a couple times I brought some task force guys. We have a warrants unit and a task force team. There's been a few times where I've had them come along with me as well.
Okay. Now, from watching movies growing up, you often see that they in movies I don't know what it is, but they say that thieves don't tend to be violent because if they're violent, they'll get thrown in jail. They're like a greater penalty. Are most criminals that smart to know, like, if I'm going to jail, I can be out in 3 months, or I can make this really bad. Is there any correlation to that?
It's kind of random.
Yeah, I think it's kind of random, or maybe because a thief, someone who's your action to rationalize a thief's thought on why he's taking something. I think, but if a thief doesn't want to go to jail, 9 times out of 10, he's going to do whatever it is he can do to potentially not get caught.
That makes sense.
So
we're eventually going to do an episode where we talk about movies, and to me, like, Heat is one of the best detective police movies ever, and I've heard it's been critically acclaimed for that. But now it'll be interesting to pick it apart. Like, yes, I did see that. No, this would have never happened. But that was, and that was one of the that was one of the scenes where they were absolutely not going to use guns until they had to, and then it was like they didn't care at that point in time because they had to. So the penalty just went up so much. It didn't matter anymore. Like, I would think unfortunately in the movie they shot a cop, so they're like, that's over now. So
hence the word Heat, the movie. Yeah. And I want to touch on because Bobby said it best, is that for anyone looking to get into investigations, take those cases that you may get and you work them, because that's what helps you gain some of that knowledge, especially when you go in front of that board and they ask you questions. You can go off of what you did previously, because you're going to learn a lot from cases as you start to handle them, because it gets a little, sometimes now when you get bigger cases, sometimes and Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong or chime in, that they become more difficult to investigate, where you may have to, do some other things and use some other tools at your disposal to try and clear that case if possible, or get a lead on the suspect.
Oh, wow. I'm going to jump back because I think, again, people who want to be in law enforcement listen to the show. I know they do. So they ask questions. What did you go to college for?
Baseball. I had no idea. When I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I would just happen to be good at baseball. So I went and played 2 years out in Kansas for my freshman and sophomore year. And then my junior and senior, I played here at Flagler.
Okay. So, and what was your degree, though?
I actually figured it out my sophomore year. I was like, okay, I'll go into criminal justice. So I have a bachelor's in criminology.
Oh, awesome. That's,
So-
I mean, again, I think there are, if you know you're going to do it, there's definitely degrees that would help, but I don't think anything would stop anybody, especially now. I can tell you from a person who runs a company, there was a time period when people were like, oh, if you're going to do this, you've got to have these 3 degrees. And then we're now going, actually, it's weird. It used to be nobody cared. Then they cared about certain degrees. And now it's more, actually, honestly, technical is more important than degrees. My degree is in philosophy and I'm running a company. So it just goes to show you. It's like you can be a bartender or run a company. There's not much in between.
And I think some companies are really going off experience now.
Yeah.
You know, even if you don't have a degree, but you've been working in that field, because I think you start to see that, you know, knowledge of a particular field that you've been in that field for a long period of time. You've seen a lot of insight. You have a lot of insight into how to operate or you know, in that particular field that you're in, as opposed to someone who may just be coming out of college. Not saying they won't get a job in that field, but if you say, hey, if I had to choose right now, someone who has 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years of experience versus someone who's coming out of college, and I don't want anybody to think I'm saying don't go get a college degree,
Right.
but some companies are just saying let's look at experience.
Well, make your decision on, is it right for you? That's
Right.
all I would encourage you. I encourage young people all the time. I'm like, if you really want to repair air conditioners and there is good money in that, you don't need to go. You could go to college and do that, but you could also go to a trade school, save a lot of money, and
Right.
know a lot more going out of the gate.
Yes.
So if you've already decided what you want to do, go for it and make the best decision. And then employers recognize that too. If somebody's like, I want to be a truck driver, I can tell you, they make very good money, especially
Great
in my
money.
company. If that's what you want to do, like, I look at that and go, yeah, you made those right decisions. Because if you're making right decisions when you're younger, you're probably, the older you get, going to continue to make right
Absolutely.
decisions. So it's a good thing to do. So one last thing I want to do before we break, I want to kind of walk us through, like, all right, so I'm the victim and you're the detective, and let's walk through the process, because I think that'd be fun to listen to. So somebody breaks into my car and they steal my radar detector. You're like, you had a radar detector, I'm not helping you. No.
That's a loss right there.
No, so they steal your laptop. All right, would that be an auto crime there, or is that because they broke into your car, or is that?
Yeah, that'd be auto burglary, so I'll get assigned that case.
So that happens to me. I probably shouldn't call 911. Call the non-emergency number, right? Because it's not wouldn't that, if you can cognitive of thinking of it, would that be the best choice, or
Yeah, if it's not in progress. Now, if you see somebody
doing it
on your camera, hey, they're in my car right now, and yeah, definitely call 911. And yeah, if it's like 10 o'clock in the morning and you just figured it out, yeah, the non-emergency would be the best way. Yeah, I would come out and make contact with you. Usually, patrol writes the initial report.
Okay.
And then they'll get as much information as they can. And then the following day, that's when it'll get transferred to my unit.
And if they're a go-getter patrolman, they might go, wait a second, I can do this. Let me talk to my supervisor. I can work this.
Well, but there is also an SOP for us, because
Okay.
if it hits a certain amount, then it has to be transferred, because if that investigation becomes a little bit more in depth.
I understand. That makes sense.
The patrol guy won't have a lot of time to actually go out every day and investigate to try and bring that case to a conclusion.
Okay.
So it has to be transferred.
Which is why,
investigations.
again, you have to get permission, because they can go, look, no, this is going to be a lot more in depth. We need, you don't have time for that. I need you back on patrol.
Right.
So, okay. So my laptop was stolen. Now, question, this is going to be sounding weird, but if like, let's say it was a government person's laptop and there's some classified stuff on there, is that like elevated to a next level, or is it all treated the same?
That'd be higher priority. I mean, definitely when it comes to, I haven't had that situation come across yet, but I would assume that would be more high priority, and that would be one of those all hands on deck, especially if there was a federal agent that had their, there's classified information involved. That'd be more of a, hey, the whole building's on it, instead of just one person kind of deal.
Okay. We have things like that with government, and I've always wondered, like, I can't give my laptop to a repair place. Like, I just can't do it. I'm always like, well, laptop's dead. You're not taking it. So,
Right.
it sucks, but it's the way it is. So I've always thought about that. Like, I mean, now my stuff isn't, national security. It just requires a clearance, but it's not big deal. I mean, honestly, if they were read it, they'd be like, oh, well, this is.
Well, I mean, there was a case, and I can't remember if it was in New Jersey or what state it was in. There was a congresswoman whose laptop was stolen out of her car. So the local PD responded. The FBI got involved, and I think within a couple of hours, they were able to track everything.
Well, that would
down.
make sense,
right?
Because it could be with. I've seen I've heard what some of their security clearances are, and there's some stuff that definitely would get in the wrong hands and not be very good.
So, and I believe it was her car.
Okay,
it might have been her car, but there were her laptop, and there were some documents in there. So,
wow.
All
right, side story really quickly because we're going to do this, but this is fascinating. So I used to work in the film industry as a writer, and I'm on a studio lot, and next thing you know, the whole lot goes into lockdown because I'm not sure if it was Peter Jackson's like Lord of the Rings got stolen, but like it was like a huge franchise. The laptop with the next draft script was stolen, and it was like, let me tell you, LAPD was there, and I mean, it was like
lock it down.
State secrets in there because it turned out that like the intern went to get coffee and it took like the boss's car and didn't know it was in the trunk, so it was no big deal. But like they locked it down. We were stuck in a room for like 4 hours because they were not letting anybody in or out, and it took it serious. Now I'm sure here we'd be like, well, dude, come on. We don't really have an industry for that. So you're not as important as you think you are.
And if the movie script comes out, we know who to go get.
To me,
right?
it all still feels like a waste of resources. Honestly, I feel like they could have been doing. I don't want to talk bad, but
do those studios hire LAPD to work off duty?
Point. They probably were.
Right.
So,
so they probably say, lock this down, right?
Yeah,
lock this down.
Lock this down. I like that better. That's probably what happened. I want to think positive. Actually, I tell you, I met a few LAPD people. They were all great. And I know that sometimes bigger cities get bad raps but that's usually because of the people living there, not law enforcement. But so anyways, all right. So patrolmen's filled out the thing. And do you interview also, or do you just go with what you got with the patrolman and then maybe follow up? How's that work?
Say I'll read the case. Most of the time, people won't have their serial numbers on deck to give to the patrol deputy.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get it the next day. They'll have to look for it because that's a big thing sometimes.
So write down your serial numbers if you haven't.
Yes, because most of the time they'll steal a laptop, go pawn it.
Right.
And if I have a serial number, boom, we have a system where we can. It'll pop up, hey, it was pawned, 40 minutes after it was stolen. That'd be perfect. Got a great suspect information. Got PC for an arrest.
Now, aren't pawn shops supposed to not sell immediately, right? Isn't there, or is that just a rumor that I've heard?
We have our own pawn detective who deals with a lot of the DSPs, which is an acronym for dealing in stolen property. And he'll deal with the pawn side. He'll have every answer to any pawn question you have.
Maybe we need to bring the
that's
pawn.
actually pretty cool. I know a lot of the pawn shops right here. There's some cool guys and women. They're all, I've bought some cool stuff there.
Yeah.
But they serve a valuable part of our society. But unfortunately, there's also the negative that occasionally somebody brings in and, hey, they'll even produce paperwork that it's real. That's the problem. It's, they're like, this is, everything passes.
Right. I have everything to turn this or get cash for this particular item. I'll come back and get it later. No, you won't.
No,
some at least.
I had a bike stolen once, not here, in another city, and it was like I immediately went to the pawn. I'm like, I'm going to the pawn shop because unfortunately I was not. They were not very hopeful when they filled out my report, and I was like, so I went to the pawn shop, and I'm like, that's it. Like it's the same. I had a seat on there, accessory, like everything matched perfectly, and of course there was no. The serial number was somehow gone, so they're like, well, it's probably not yours.
We'll sell it back to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll do the pawn thing. That would be fun. All right,
I'll take my steps on every case. Like I'll go do a canvas for cameras, see if there's, I can get a vehicle, the suspect vehicle where he drove into, or because that'll help out a lot because we have license plate readers throughout the county, which is a great addition. We've installed those the past couple of years.
Yes.
So that's been a great addition to our county. It's been helping us solve a lot of cases. And yeah, it's just you take all these steps, canvas, check for pawns, look for anybody that patrol might have checked out with throughout the night. That might have been just walking down the road, or they're just sitting in their car in a neighborhood with it running. They'll see it, check all those field contacts throughout the night, and you just kind of put all those into factor. And that's pretty much, and then go from there.
What's the, this is probably unfortunate, so I'm going to pause in case we edit this out. What's the likelihood of getting your stuff back? Is it?
Well, it depends what it is, to be honest. Catalytic converter cases, very hard to solve. Because usually they'll hit these like collision centers where we don't have a good time frame. It could be a week. They last saw it. They last started it. Or these like used cars places up and down Blanding.
But I imagine though that doesn't mean that the person doesn't go to jail for something else, because they're probably a bad person. That it just that item is so hard to get back. But imagine in that field, you're into bad stuff. You're going to have your day. You just, as the victim, might not ever know about it. But I'm trying to make the listener feel better, because it sucks when your stuff gets stolen. It's just
converter cases are probably the hardest to solve, just because most of the time you don't have a good time frame. They're not serialized. So it's just kind of some of those cases you're just like.
What about if it's your whole car? Are they pretty good about getting them in? Do they just take them straight to a chop shop and it's done, or is that?
We don't usually have chop shops. I think in 2 years I've been an auto crime detective, I think we've made one arrest on a chop shop. Usually they're not very common in Clay County. We usually solve a lot of the stolen car cases, because usually they joyride it back to Jacksonville or St. John's. And then we'll find it, process it for fingerprints, and get a suspect that way. So I think our unit's clearance rate for last year, which is the percentage of cases we solved, was in the 40 percentile. And I think the state average is like 15%.
Right, that's really good. And I think we've talked about this many times, is it's hard for a civilian to wrap their head around those numbers. But it's like, again, when you're talking about, like, it could have been they stole your prized pen out of your car. Like, that is not easy. I mean, there's expensive pens.
Right.
You could have $100 pen. Like, it could be a lot to you, but it's not going to be easy to find because it's a pen.
Right.
Yeah, and you got to always remember as a detective, because you're getting 2-3 cases a day, that these are people's. Well, this is a bad day for a person.
Right.
It sucks being a victim. It's one of your worst days, and you feel personalized. And
is that part of training, or is that just because the unfortunate times that I've had to deal with that to detectives have always been great. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know if that's something y'all train for that, or is it just they probably wouldn't promote somebody that kind of didn't have that empathy? Yeah,
you just got to remind yourself. Really, there's training. They'll teach you in the academy and stuff like that these are people's worst days. But you always have to, especially as a detective, and you always want to treat everybody with respect. Everybody has their bad days. So, why'd you leave your car unlocked? You never want to think like that, especially to a victim. Because like I said, it could, like you said, it could have been a very prized possession, even though it was just a pen. It could have been a lot.
The pen that your mother gave you before she died.
Right.
Something horrible.
A watch or something like that. You always have to, remind yourself these are, victims' worst days, probably of the month, of the year, whatnot. Mm-hmm. Even though it's your third case of, the day, you got to keep yourself in their shoes.
Now, if you do recover property, one of the things that I've, again, from the civilian side, we always hear, like, your laptop's on, but now it's going to be, is it evidence until something happens and you're not getting it back? How does that work?
I know for vehicles, we, call the victim because we don't want to have it towed, because the tow yard will charge the victim. And so you're victimized twice, basically. Yeah. So we try to call a victim, and then property, we'll return it to the owner. If it was like a gun and it was used in obviously a shooting, you got to keep it for evidence and stuff like that.
So you might be able to, like, if it was your laptop, get it back, and then I guess if there's a trial, you might have to give it back again to let them do trial. Is that?
No, we'll just put it back to the victim. We have a chain of custody form that we always fill out, and that'll be used for the evidential value. Okay.
Because again, that's something that people, I know it sounds weird, but I've heard that many times. People are like, oh man, if this happens, you're never going to get it back. You might as well actually, they even sell insurance for it. Like with the company, they are always like, well, if there was a crime and your laptop's stolen, your employee will not get that back. You have to, it might be years and you'll need to replace it. So,
Right.
little things like that. It's probably just a sales pitch. And it turns out maybe it varies by department too. And like you said, the severity of the crime. So to recap, the best thing you can do is to lock your car.
Yes.
Probably second best is don't park in someplace stupid. Like if your spider senses are going off, like this is a bad area, maybe not park there. Would that be another good tip or what else? Any other good tips?
Well-lit area.
Well-lit area.
Park where it's well-lit.
Yeah, lock your car. Like I said, there's very few times where they actually break a window to enter the vehicle.
Do car alarms you think help, or those are just a distraction? Because it seems like too many people ignore them nowadays. Like,
it's still a deterrent. I mean, at least draw attention. Where it could possibly get people looking.
Right. Well, I guess it's like I've heard dogs really aren't that effective for keeping people out, but a big dog might make you go to your neighbor's house
Hey,
just to be safe.
If you can get that one extra advantage,
right?
Why not?
It's like if you're being chased by an alligator, you just have to be faster than the person next to you. That's
perspective.
That's it.
And there's some cases where I get confused. Like last year, there was a TikTok trend of how to steal a Hyundai Elantras. So there's the back windows not censored for alarms. So like there's a part so they break that, unlock it, and then there's a way to remove the steering column and start it with a HDMI adapter.
So I think things like that is look. We have a free country. It's freedom of speech. However, as a civilian, you should be able to civilly, if your car is stolen, sue and be like, well, you led to this, especially if you could prove it. Like if the guy gets arrested and they're like, oh, watch this on TikTok, then you've got cause. I don't know. I'll ask my lawyer friends about that. It just seems like, come on, don't do that.
Yeah, the Hyundai,
be a good member of society.
Right.
The Hyundai trend was all juveniles. And we saw this on TikTok. It was a trend going around, and it was great for joyriding. If we needed to go to Clay County and needed to get back, we would find
that's
wow.
And they would only drive it because the battery dies out after a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they would use it for, to get to point A to point B.
Wow. Anybody listening to this, if you have kids, just remind them that don't let them screw up the rest of their lives. Just
make good choices.
Yeah, make good choices.
Make good choices.
That's because if you get caught, that's a severe punishment. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And unless you just want to ruin your life.
Yeah, that was one of the few cases that we had where they didn't find a key fob for the car, and it was actually forced entry.
Wow.
But it was a TikTok trend, and these kids watch. No, I watch TikTok too, but
we all do.
There's some funny stuff on TikTok, but yeah, they catch on to these trends and they'll mimic it. And like I said, from getting to point A to point B, that's what they did. And it was a few months for that trend. For that, there was a huge spike.
Wow, all
over Northeast Florida and probably country nationwide, where it was vehicle thefts just because of those Hyundai TikTok trend.
Wow. Well. Lock your cars. Park someplace safe. And
well-lit area.
So, this is fascinating. All right, so we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk a little football, and then I'll let them go. Because they probably, remember, when we're recording, that means they've probably been working and are tired. So, you're listening to Never On. Okay, we're back. So if you're a football fan, there's something going on this weekend. It'll already be done by the time you listen to it, and that is the Super Bowl. So I've got two deputy Ford and Detective Bobby B. Yeah, I messed that up. Bassler. Yeah, so I got it right. Somewhat. Who are Philly fans, and you're both from Philly, which is actually pretty cool because you're in Clay County now, and it's just weird how worlds unite. So last time we were recording, it was before with Deputy Ford. We were talking about the Jaguar game. There's a big Jaguar playoff game, and that was pretty amazing. And if you're a Jags fan like I am, we didn't go to the Super Bowl, but we had a good season. We turned a good season around. I think there's a lot of positive going into the next season, but that comeback was amazing.
Yes.
Did y'all watch the game?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, Doug Peterson and Bobby tell you, you talk about wanting to give a team a chance. The right coach in the right place. Doug Peterson is that guy.
Well, it's very hard to come back like that. I mean, I think that you have to just mentally say, I'm not giving up. And it's a test of character. I'm a Florida State fan. We had a game against Florida where it was like that. And it was like nothing to, I forget what it was. And it was like, they called it the choke a doke, but it was like, but because it was just insane. It was like every fan left. And I wasn't downtown, so I don't know if the Jags fans stayed. But I mean, look, there comes a point in time when they're like, this is over. But It takes character to go, nope, not today. Hey, they scored 30 points on us. We could score 30 on them.
Doug Peterson has always been great. Even when he was in Philadelphia, has been great at halftime adjustments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you're from Philly, you love Doug Peterson. I mean,
so there's no hard feelings about it.
Oh, no. He is very well he's loved in Philadelphia. That's awesome. He will never have to buy a cheesesteak again.
Told you that before, so awesome. Right?
I love cheesesteaks. I got to go to Philly just to eat one. But now we've got the Super Bowl coming up. Now, we've talked about from a policing standpoint that it would be all hands on deck.
Yes.
And I imagine at the Super Bowl, there's probably some federal involvement too, wouldn't you think?
You have federal, state, local. You have them all, there. Even some of your military personnel, National Guard, will be there probably just to help provide, additional security and give you eyes and ears everywhere you need them and possibly want them to be.
Okay. I have something I'm going to read y'all, so that's why I'm looking down at my phone. And I would imagine too that you've got. I mean, it'd be really cool to work it.
Yes.
I mean, so I imagine the local FBI officer. Yeah, call us in. We're here. Whatever you need.
Yes.
We'll be plainclothed in the fence. And does that how it works? You have plainclothes. Do you have? I know I've saw that the Jaguars game. They had drones. They had.
Yes.
Everything going.
You will have every form of advanced technology at your disposal, because you have to remember you have dignitaries, who are going to be there, who probably have security that travels with them. So it's the safety of those dignitaries, whether it's in the federal level, the state level, or the local level. But then you also think about the general public. And making sure that you keep those attending the Super Bowl, the players safe. So there's a lot of planning that goes into, putting on the Super Bowl, but any sports venue, period. There's a lot of planning that goes involved. But this is the height. This is the pinnacle of sports. And it's Super Bowl. Everybody's there. And so you're going to have every law enforcement agency there, from the federal to the local level. There with all their technology, all their manpower to help make sure that that's a safe event so that people can enjoy themselves.
Wow. Now, if you were called in to work it and you had your choice, it's wherever you want to be on here, where just come in, we need your help. Where would you want to be working that if you were going to work it? What?
In the game, huh?
Listen, as much as I love, because one thing, so I'm in the public information side.
Right.
So for the Super Bowl, you're going to have public information officers from all those agencies in a joint information center, or, right there or somewhere close by, because putting out information to the people in the community, to the people attending the Super Bowl. Because remember, you got to get communication out to folks. So as much as I would love to be in that area, because that's my field I'm in, I'm with him. I'd rather be on the sideline. Hey, assign me a security position where I am actually sitting there watching the game as I'm cheering with the crowd.
You'd be like, I want to be the guy that watches in case somebody runs on the field. So my eyes have to be on the field. I cannot watch the stands.
Because I don't want my back turned looking at the crowd. That's not who I came to see.
I want to be the guy that's got to stop Kevin Hart this year. From running running up on the trophy
Running
stand.
up on the trophy stand, yes.
That's so awesome. You know what's funny about that? Like, so that happened at the World Cup. Like this TikTok guy, chef,
Yes.
like made his way up there. Like, but
Yeah.
nobody stopped him.
Nobody
Like,
stopped him.
Grabbed the trophy
Yeah.
and everything.
I think he's since been banned.
Yes, yes, he has. All right, so I got to tell you this because there's still time. I got sent this. My friend has 2 tickets for the Super Bowl. They're box seats. He paid $2,500 for each ticket, but he didn't realize last year when he bought them it was going to be on the same day as his wedding. So if you're interested, was looking for someone to take his place. It's going to be at St. Joseph's Church at 3 p.m. Her name is Melissa. She's 5'7", about 140 pounds, and she's a good cook, and she'll be wearing white.
That was Hey, if you want to marry her, hey, go ahead. Because listen, there are some things important in life. It's funny. My father-in-law, we were talking. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and we happened to have a conversation when they said, when it comes to football, I love it. And God first. And he said, there's 3 things in life, God, family, sports. And number 2 and number 3 sometimes come to conflict with each other.
Well, growing up, the rule was you did not plan weddings during football season.
No, you do not.
That's the rule.
My wife knows. Anybody who comes and says, "Hey, so and so is having a birthday party and they want Jocelyn to come," or hey, so and so is having an event, they want us to come there, and I said, "Well, y'all go have a good time." Yeah. I said because if And I mean this in all fun, jokingly, type way. But if your friend's husband or boyfriend allowed them to plan some form of event during football season on a Sunday, then that's his fault. I'm not coming because I'm watching football.
Yeah. I did once. I had I think it was a wedding, and it was and of course we all thought like it wasn't going to be a good game, but it was. So like, we got phones out. We're watching. We're at the bar watching it. And they kind of, like, sorry, you shouldn't have planned it then.
My goodness. Yeah.
It's not that hard to do. They have schedules.
They do.
It is a little harder for the Super Bowl because a lot of people, if it's not their team, they're not as invested. It's a fun event, so right. I'm hosting a party, so yeah, it's great. But it's not your team; it's not a big a deal. But you just never know; it could be your team. Did y'all feel confident with this season? Because
after about week 3, I was like, all right, we got to start making plans for February. I mean, are we gonna go to the game? And then, then Super Bowl rolls around. I was planning on the next. I was like, next time we go, I'm going.
Are you going?
No, unfortunately, not because it's. Looked at the ticket prices.
It's insane.
I'm not spending $5,500 on a nosebleed.
And the funny thing is, Bobby sent me a message one day, and he said, "You want to split a room?"
But that's the thing is, like, they'll gouge you on everything. Like a lot of times they'll be like, "Well, yes, the rooms are $300 a night, but you have to get it for a week.
Right.
You can't even just get it for one night."
Well, the stars aligned for the Super Bowl because I have a great aunt that lives in Glendale.
Okay.
So that would have been perfect. And she has like 2 extra bedrooms. I have an uncle that's a flight attendant for Spirit. So I would have he gets like 15 free flights a year. So I would have had a free flight right to Phoenix and then just drive over to Glendale. Everything was lining up. And then I looked at ticket prices.
It's the ticket prices. It is a shame.
And it's the amount it went up in like just the past, 15, 20 years.
Yes.
They've always been expensive, but it's like, I'm a capitalist, so I get it. But on the other hand, it's like, I kind of feel like for the good of the game, you should have like this many tickets are actually going to be for true fans.
And
that's,
I talked to someone about that because I said, Super Bowl, the season ticket holders, the true fans who go to the game, support their teams every year. And whether your team makes it or not, if you are a true fan of football and sports, no matter what team's in there, listen, I don't like the Dallas Cowboys, but if someone said, "Hey, you want to go to the Super Bowl?" I'm a root against the Cowboys, but I'm going.
Yeah, I'd go too.
I'm going sitting there.
Especially if they have tickets for free.
Exactly right. And so I shouldn't say it's unfortunate because I understand they have to make money, but the people who can really afford it are now the millionaires. Those those who don't watch it, and it's like
like we're talking about with the box,
right?
The boxes are fun, but there's a great deal of people that are just there to talk to other people, not watch the game,
right?
And it's like Come on, this is an experience.
I want a true fan sitting next to
Yeah.
me, or just a lover of the sport itself.
Well, that's what I like about college games is most of the universities allot, X number of tickets to students. Like they're going, there's a lottery, especially more popular teams like Florida State. They had the lottery, and you didn't always get a student ticket, but they were at least sections of students there who really supported the teams, and
Right.
and I mean they don't ever sit down. It's great, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So. We were talking off air because I told you about my friend who is a doctor, and her husband was like, "This is not the person I marry when they go to a Phillies game," and he was worried that she was going to get arrested, and so they put up now probably not as much as a Super Bowl, but at a Phillies home game, like you said, there's a judge there, and
that was Veterans Stadium.
Okay.
Back in the day, that's since been torn down. But yes, we used to have Seamus McCafferty. He was a judge, retired Philadelphia police officer, and became a judge.
Wow.
And yes.
So we'll go around the room. I think I'm going to go. So I think it was there was an artificial intelligence, which is we'll talk about that one day because I think there's a law enforcement thing about that. I mean, there's AI out there predicting what drugs will work. There's all that. So that'd be a fascinating topic to see how that will change your field. But so one of the AIs predicted, I think it was 31-17 Philly. That was and it's a weird number because I'm trying to figure out what.
Right.
Like it's I don't know. I got to do my math and see if that works out.
I truly hope the AI is 100% correct, because we were having a conversation because I think we said it's a 1.5 spread.
Right.
But I just don't think that Kansas City has ever seen or faced a defense like the Eagles defense where 4 guys, or 5 can get pressure. We're talking about over 70, 77, 78 sacks on the year.
That's insane. It really is. That's awesome.
So to be able to apply that much pressure and not bring a blitz package all the time, even a 70% Holmes is still dangerous. If he can buy time, and still scramble, it's still dangerous. But hopefully with the pressure of our defense, we can get after him and actually get him to make some mistakes.
So you're feeling good.
I am. I'm nervous, but yes.
And you're feeling good too?
I am. House is divided right now. My wife is from Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
Right outside Kansas.
Wow.
Well, she grew up about 45 minutes outside of Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
So she grew up a Chiefs fan. So right now, and I've had to hear it for the past 5 years. Mahomes this, Mahomes that. And I was like, okay, our time will come.
Yep.
Again.
Usually everybody's time comes. I mean, that's the thing, dude. Don't despair.
Yes.
There is a chance one day before I die, maybe, Jaguars.
The Jaguars.
Yeah, there's a chance. There's a chance.
Well, if they keep Doug Peterson, then the chances of y'all getting to a Super Bowl.
I have a hot take on it. I think their Super Bowl window is open.
I do too.
Yes.
Actually,
starting next
I don't
year.
bet, but I heard like if you bet on the Jaguars right now for the Super Bowl last year, it's like 1,000 to 1 odds.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like that could happen. I'm not going to go to Vegas and make that bet, but I would. But I feel like that actually could happen. Like that's not crazy.
I mean, right now, if you sit there and think, players who may know Doug Peterson's coaching style, and then players who when free agency come about, and I say, man, where is a team I can go where I know the possibility of winning a championship is there. And now, again, I'm not a Jags fan, but when you really think about it, yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Like Bobby said, the window is open for them. And so get players coming in, they're going to be free agency on top of draft picks where, you put this team together.
And they got Calvin Ridley coming.
So yes.
They got Calvin Ridley. I mean, a couple offseason moves. I mean, they're Trevor Lawrence, another year of experience.
Yes.
He gets better every time.
Now he has playoff experience.
Mm-hmm. Look again when you quarterback a game with that type of comeback.
Yeah,
every game you go, I can do it. I did it once, can do it again. That confidence is huge.
Went into Kansas City and they almost won that game.
They did.
They really competed and that's Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be before his career's over. I think he'll have a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
I think so too, and I hope it's at Jacksonville. But I think he
may get 3 rings out of his career.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah, so it's bright stuff for Jacksonville.
But not this Sunday though. He won't get his second ring this Sunday. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
So you're going to make a prediction on this, on what the point spread's going to be? I mean, what the score's going to be?
Well, again, they're saying the point spread is 1.5.
Okay.
I truly believe if the Eagles the defense plays the way it plays, double Kels, don't leave that middle open, and take your shot on one-on-one with the wide receivers. But if we get pressure, I think we'll probably beat them by 10.
Yeah, because if you watch the AFC Championship, Mahomes had a struggle in rolling to the left and planting off that right foot, and it all depends on his ankle. If his ankle's good, I think the over/under is 51. I think the over is free money, to be honest. I think if you bet the over, that's free. But if Mahomes is 100%, I think it comes down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, I'd like the score to be 0-2.
So that means a safety came about, right?
That means, that defense really showed up.
It really showed up.
Awesome.
But I think our defense is just a lot more prepared. Well, I shouldn't say prepared. It's a lot more stout, a lot more aggressive, and again, with that front line, and then even rotating defensive linemen in, the pressure is going to be endless, and who can sustain longer.
Right. Now, last thing, because we'll bring it back to the show, is you can never predict anything. And, thoughts, prayers, you pray nothing bad happens, but it's very safe event, correct? I mean, you would feel like that's one of the more, I feel like an event like this is so well choreographed, it's probably safer than a random event that, like I'm just going to go to the movies tonight, because you never know what chaos is going to happen.
You never, because anything can happen. But yes, I have to say the safest event someone can be at, especially if they properly prepared and trained. Now there are things that can happen unexpectedly, but let's be honest, airspace is shut down. Safety perimeters. There are checkpoints all throughout near that stadium and all around that area. So one of the safest events you can.
If you had to go to a safe event, I mean, you don't feel uncomfortable. I've always I don't feel comfortable going to Times Square, because I feel like that's too. But I know it's well choreographed and well protected and all that. But it's one of those things. I think it's for people that are situationally aware. You might go, that seems scary, but again, you've got great departments and agencies doing everything in their power and spending a lot of their time to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, the amount of elected officials that'll be at the game, celebrities, I mean, it'll, I think the FBI.
I think, and it's just, again, it boils down to planning. You got your evacuation messages ready to go, evacuations, folks, the people that you had there know if something were to happen and where evacuation needed to take place, you have the right people in the right place that know what they're doing, whatever sections they're in, where they're supposed to lead people or how they're supposed to handle whatever event is, to make sure that, if they're giving whatever information pertaining to whatever incident, they already know what the role in the play and how to operate in that particular incident if it occurs.
And I mean, I'm taking it back to last episode that y'all didn't hear about. You'll eventually get to listen to it. It was about the Clay County Fair. And they were talking about their preparedness, and it was even events like, what if we had a mass food poisoning incident? And it's like, that's the question. Like, you go out there and you can't plan for everything. That's I forget if it was Sun Tzu or somebody said that in a war all plans go away as soon as the battle starts, and that's the reality. But you plan for everything so that if something does, you hope it's one of the ones you plan for.
Right.
And if not, you hope you've got luck, God, and good generals on the field to make adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the key: making those adjustments on the fly. And then the other thing is misinformation, making sure that you combat the misinformation if something happens. So
we just need to build a big stadium here in Clay County so that we can have events like that. That'd be.
I would love one.
I actually would too. I feel like with the way that the North Florida is developing, that if we had, I mean, Thrasher Horn Center is amazing,
right? But
if we had a veterans arena here, I feel like in 5 years you probably could fill it. Depending on who would come to.
I mean, you got to think. I mean, the way Clay County is growing.
Yeah,
I mean, we're one of the fastest growing counties. I mean, we could be like a Arlington, how it is Arlington is to Dallas.
Yeah.
And they could move the Jag Stadium over here.
Well, and you'd have plenty of parking.
Yeah, more parking, and that's why they moved, the Cowboys from Dallas to over to Arlington, because it's more.
No doubt about it. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, look, we're not saying they're going to move the Jags. Don't worry about anybody listening. But I'm saying that, for our people, county commissioners listening, yes, there's a parking need for it. I mean, you can have. We're in this area where you can actually do it nicely.
Yes.
You can have nice hotels, restaurants near it, and the population's there, and we're almost there. I mean, and I know people from the other side, like St. Johns County would come, Putnam would come. So there's such a draw from the rest of Florida to fill this stuff. I mean, I go to Thrasher Horn and it's packed. I mean, it's and they've got great venues. It's a beautiful venue.
Yes.
But when they planned it, Clay County was still growing. So, they planned it and it works now, but eventually we're going to need another venue. So I hope we get one.
Absolutely.
I hope we get one, and hopefully, maybe a private industry listening will make that happen. So you're listening to Never Off Duty. Thank you so much coming, Detective. Thank you, Deputy. It was a great time. Anything else before we go?
Nope. Just thank you, Judson, for having us again.
No problem. All right. Y'all send those emails in and share the show. You're listening to Never Off Duty.